That's right, folks. A lot of you who watch the show are likely keenly aware of the shortcomings of the Illinois cannabis program. And today, you actually have an opportunity to provide feedback directly to the state of Illinois. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, shorthand called IDFPR, is asking for public input on the administrative rules that govern dispensaries and their employees. So these rules shape everything from how dispensaries operate to what training staff need and what compliance looks like on the ground. So whether you're an employee, an owner, or a customer, your experience is relevant here. Now, in case you're not familiar with IDFPR's role, this is the agency that handles dispensary licensing. They approve staff training programs and they enforce the rules designed to protect public health and safety, as they said in a recent meeting that I attended. They've made meaningful changes through rulemaking before. One example we've covered on colememo.com is curbside pickup for medical cannabis patients. This started as a temporary COVID measure, but IDFPR later made it permanent through the rulemaking process. And I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that your feedback would turn into something that gets codified, but what I am going to say is that IDFPR is asking for and how you can share those ideas. So if you've got thoughts and you want the state to hear them, I'd encourage you to brainstorm and submit them before January 7th, 2026. I know that's less than a month away. That's less than a month away. It's really unfortunate that we've got such a short time period. I will say the post I saw set before January 7th, so I don't know if they'll stop collecting feedback then. I feel like it should just be something that's always open. But just as a quick reminder for folks that are just now tuning in, I'm Cole Preston, and you are watching the Cole Memo. The show's recorded live to tape, which means your comments can be a part of the conversation. So drop your comment below, and we can display them on screen like I'm doing right now. You can also call in at colememo.com/live. We've got a caller on hold here, and I'll bring them up if they've got any thoughts. But I just want to say that this show is funded by listeners like you. So help keep it going by liking, sharing, or donating $1 at colememo.com/support. And as always, I'll throw links in the show notes, including the sources for today's segment. That'll all be in the episode description. So here's what IDFPR is doing. And I want to give a shout out to Illinois News Joint for reporting this. I'll put that link in the show notes. The agency has put out a survey asking the public 3 simple questions. Are there specific sections of the rules you think should be changed? Do you have ideas for improvements that aren't captured in the current rules? And are you open to someone from IDFPR following up with you for more detail? They also note that the form doesn't collect personal information unless you choose to provide it. And this feedback is meant for IDFPR's cannabis control section, which again is part of the agency that oversees dispensary licensing, employee credentialing, training, program approvals, and compliance enforcement. So this is the place to talk about real world problems and put forward your practical fixes. So I'll have links in the description for the survey itself, along with the current adult use and medical dispensary rules in case you'd like to look through them as you brainstorm. And I just want to reiterate one more time, because I know I have a lot of passionate home growers that tune in. IDFPR does not oversee everything in the cannabis system in Illinois. They don't regulate cultivation centers. They don't set policy on home grow. So comments on those topics may not land, if you know what I'm saying. But if your feedback relates to dispensary operations, employee rules, or the customer experience inside a dispensary, that is within their lane. One example I will say, just for my home growers, just planting a little seed, if you will, pun intended. Back in 2022, I asked the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office why dispensaries weren't selling seeds. Because if you look at the law, it says that medical patients may purchase seeds at dispensaries. And they told me at the time, to their knowledge, no dispensaries in Illinois offered them. I knew that. That's why I asked the question. They said allowing seed sales would likely require updates to the state's old seed to sale system, BioTrack, because it couldn't track dynamic products like seeds. So just to be clear, under Illinois law, dispensaries can sell seeds. They're legally allowed to, but they're not required to. Most simply don't. There's no mandate for cultivation centers or dispensaries to supply seeds, but they could. And I have talked with operators on the podcast who said they've tried. They've asked the department, hey, can we sell seeds? I can buy hemp seed. Can we sell it along other retail items in our store? They told me that the department would not allow it at the time, which really stood out to me because it does show that some operators did want to offer them. And I bring this all up because now the state has switched over to Metrc. I can't help but wonder if the functionality is more attainable than it used to be. You remember they blamed BioTrack. They said, well, yes, the law says we can sell seeds, but right now we can't because the software doesn't allow us to. I wonder if Metrc allows you to. So that might be the kind of practical dispensary focused feedback worth including in your submission. And that's exactly the type of issue I think this survey is designed to capture. I'd love to hear what you guys think, what changes you think Illinois should make, whether it's something small and practical or something bigger that could help bring the program closer to what people expected when legalization passed. Drop your ideas in the comments or call in. I'm going to bring Dave back up. I'm curious if Dave has any thoughts on this.
Oh, I can go for a bit, but I think like the biggest one for me, or one of the bigger ones for me, Lord Nero hit pretty perfectly as number one. Medical patients should be able to get medical tax breaks at every dispensary.
Well
It
said.
is, yep, unfortunate that they are not. I do believe that, like, even for the market, it's just good for everybody. The market, it's good for the consumer, it's good for everybody. If they were to expand limits, I think limit expansion would be one of the biggest things, because expanding a purchase limit would also expand your carry limit at the same time. So you would be less a criminal for the same level of possession or purchase.
Yeah. Every time anything like this comes up, I just question what can they actually do?
While you were saying this, I was racking my brain pretty good. And like the medical patient thing, like I've always been more for the medical patient. I'm for everybody, but just like we watched that news story earlier, the stories are more captivating. They feel more impactful. But yeah, I don't know that they have much ability outside of maybe making a mention to other, like, entities of the state, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like they've applied pressure on lawmakers in the past, for example. So is that sort of what you're thinking? Like,
It's literally it. I mean, I think without a Pritzker signature or something, right? I don't know that these things change anyway, so maybe they have the ability to kind of force the hand there.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The reason that thought comes up for me is the mention of curbside, because as you recall, or as you may recall, and as our listeners may recall, that was introduced as a temporary measure in COVID, and then of course, it was set to sunset. Great people like Illinois News Joint and other content creators, I think even you guys on the Elevated News podcast, made sure to sort of sound the alarm on that. I remember I was involved in a sort of campaign to sort of protest the sunsetting of that provision, and ultimately IDFPR codified it. So it's like, I realize that's maybe a bad example to use because it's like extraordinary times bring about extraordinary measures, and COVID was an extraordinary time. It's kind of crazy. So
yeah.
maybe that's all it is. But this is a concept that did not exist, and they're like, yeah, you could do curbside pickup, and I'm like, okay, so what else can they just do?
I
You
wonder
know?
if they could change, like, maybe allowing product to be on the floor, which in some places it is, right? Like, I
Right,
don't know if
right.
you've been into like a mint cannabis. They have like their whole entire shelves on rat or on like sliding racks that like slide back into the vault. So they're stored away at night, and anything that they keep up in like their refrigerated department, they have to pull off a cart and then go shove it into a refrigerator in the back every day. So there's still like not overnight floor things, but yeah, I that seems kind of more possible. Maybe because the seed thing is already baked in, like, maybe they could make the change without having, like, bigger or other entities get involved, but I just think like a like what I'm talking about, the limit possession thing, that's gotta go through all the levels of government, I would imagine. I don't think that's something the IDFPR could change on their own.
Right, right, because it's codified into law, the
Yeah.
30-gram thing. So I think, yeah, you're I mean, maybe they could suggest an amendment because we've seen that recently with Illinois Department of Agriculture, I think doing a similar, proposing amendments through the rulemaking process. But I use curbside example because I'm like, and it wasn't so much to bring it back to seeds because I truly think that the seeds thing, it's just a technical limitation. Like I don't think there's a big conspiracy. I think it just they wanted to do it with BioTrack. They were getting an error that they couldn't track dynamic products or whatever, and they just didn't do it. But my thing is like Kenneth Long said, delivery, full stop. That's exactly where my mind went. Where it's like, okay, in the past, it was a completely like unthinkable concept to do. Hey, we're bringing the product outside and we're giving it to you in your car. So I'm like, I mean, what's the difference between curbside at the dispensary and curbside at my house? I mean, obviously there's some pretty major differences, distance and all that stuff, but I'm just saying, like what's possible? What's possible? You know?
Yeah, I've always, delivery, I mean, I'm for it. I'm not necessarily against it, especially, like, for that person that we saw, the news story about today, but the state has 100 cameras everywhere watching every single bit of product going everywhere. So, I mean, without somebody putting I mean, like, I can't imagine what they would make you do. Like, put a camera in your vehicle, get on
Well,
a GPS system. Like, there's a lot of things because that technically, if a delivery driver came up, picked something up, and it didn't get to the end consumer, is that like some level of diversion or I mean, yeah,
to your point, in Massachusetts, they wear body cams to
okay.
do delivery,
It's wild.
right?
That's super wild. But I mean, again, that like how the what would the state require for you to do to get to that point? And
Yeah,
they like it's weird to say that because they don't force delivery drivers in, that drop cannabis product off to dispensaries to where
true.
you know? But I think that's a little bit different because there is still a checks and balances with every invoice that comes through and every manifest that comes through is signed by the dispensary crew and the delivery group. And then like everyone is timed. You have to tell the state every time that it's happening.
Well,
They
and
just, yeah.
as NBC reported in the past, there's cameras inside the vans. There are GPS locate, like GPS trackers that will notify companies if they cross state lines. And in fact, in the NBC report, they argued that cannabis transportation laws are actually more strict than the transportation of opioids because with opioids, and we've had some people on the show, and there was even an interviewer on the segment on the NBC report that I'm referring to, where he said, "Yeah, I used to deliver opioids to Walgreens and stuff, and you know where I put it? In the front seat of my car." Meanwhile, cannabis is in dual locked and camera, and it's all crazy. But no, that's a brilliant point. Like, you know, I sit here and say, like, oh, maybe we could do this. But to your point, with as much as we overregulate cannabis, whatever that actually looks like in practice, that's a whole different thing. I
Yeah.
say delivery and everybody's like, "Yeah, delivery," because somebody else said, Lord Nero said, "How are you gonna deliver cannabis in Chicago? They'll get robbed." It's like, well,
Well,
alcohol gets delivered in Chicago, so I don't think that's
but and I mean, I've always said like, who the hell is robbing cannabis or a dispensary or whatever. People have done pettier for less, right? But
sure. Yeah.
if somebody maxes out their limit, let's say, which again, I think it just sucks because one delivery driver would have to take one order at a time, or could you pick up multiple? And like, I mean, we're talking complete theoretical, but if that's the case, like, oh, it just feels like there is so much in the way of, I don't know, man. Like the safety side of it is kind of weird. I mean, the delivery driver would be taking on a liability, and it's not like it's any different than, I guess, like you said, like having alcohol delivered to your house. If you had a $1,000 bottle of alcohol delivered to your house, it would be no different than having the same equivalent of cannabis. Like, as far as somebody holding material worth something, but
Yeah. Well, and let's put it this way. This thought just came to mind. I saw this billboard on my way through Missouri, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Because it was talking about online ordering. It turns out it was a hemp shop, and they're selling like pounds through the mail. And this isn't the first time I've seen that. But then you just take it to a more familiar level. Like in Chicago, you got DoorDash and what's the other delivery service?
yeah, yeah, yep.
I mean, they're delivering weed in Chicago. I know
Uber
it's
Eats, yeah.
yeah, Uber Eats. So I know that's to your point though. I think the strong point you bring up and that others have brought up in the comments is that whatever that actually looks like in practice is probably way different from what we're envisioning. Such is most of this whole thing, right? Um,
Yeah. I mean, but yeah. Yeah, and trust me, as the average everyday guy, like, I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. I Why
right.
wouldn't they do that? They should do that right now." But when yeah,
And to be clear, Governor Pritzker has said he's supportive of the idea. This was almost 3 years ago, I think at this point, he was asked, hypothetically, "Would you support legislation for delivery?" And he said, "As long as we treat it like alcohol and that the person getting it is the person that ordered it and that person is an adult, let's do it."
yep,
I wanted to acknowledge another comment that is very important. Brandon Krieger asks, "If these regulators get enough feedback, couldn't they lobby to change the laws?" Absolutely, and they
yeah,
do. They do. I mean, if you look back, I think I've published on or shared on the podcast, the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office and other agencies that are under them have come out with legislative agendas, and that's a recent report that I wrote. They specifically mentioned that they've been supporting and encouraging people or lawmakers, I mean to say, to allow for medical patients to shop at all dispensaries. So yes, Brandon, regulators absolutely can lobby. And in fact, like with the whole hemp ban thing recently, if you go back and watch some of the testimony that was given, some of our regulators actually testified in support of the legislation that would have banned hemp at a state level. Of course, now with the federal thing, who knows if we'll see anything on that, but that's a different subject. Any other thoughts on just it's kind of interesting, Dave, don't you think? Like the state is asking the people for the feedback, man.
it's
That's
huge.
cool.
It really is. It is cool. Of the entities that should be asking for the feedback, it is the IDFPR though, too. Like, they are the ones who ultimately decide what goes down in the dispensary, or they're the regulation body that oversees what goes down inside a dispensary. So kudos to them for actually opening it. But I'm with you too. Like, to put a deadline on it and be like, you have 1 month, tell us what you want. And if you don't,
During the holiday season too. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, well, but maybe that's why, right? Like, yeah, who
maybe
wants to read through all the submissions of all the people? And I mean, somebody has to do the job, and that's why too, maybe you give it a deadline so that they can read through all of the submissions and give it a true honest shake. Because I would imagine all of these people should be doing something on a day-to-day basis that is already taking up most of their time. But
yeah. One
yeah,
piece of feedback I want everybody to incorporate in their feedback, Dave, you just inspired this thought. Is so whatever you guys think should be improved by the program, include that, but I think you should also recommend that they regularly ask for all of our feedback and that this isn't the last time we're able to provide feedback. I think that's a great recommendation. Hey, I
honestly.
recommend you keep doing this.
Yes. Yep.
You know? So
Yep.
please,
Ongoing.
if you're planning on this, folks, like I said, I'll have the links in the description for the survey itself, along with the current adult use and medical dispensary rules in case you want to look through them as you brainstorm. Just remember what I think it's very important to curtail or focus your suggestions on what IDFPR can actually do. And if you're not sure, that's okay. Maybe just say that at the beginning of your recommendation. Be like, look, this is the first time I've been asked for feedback on cannabis policy in Illinois. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I apologize if some of my recommendations are not something you can field. And could you potentially let me know if that's the case? That you always try to do stuff like that so that you can at least be pointed in the right direction. Because when I've given feedback in the past, IDFPR, for example, has told me, "Hey, Cole, we don't do anything with that. You're going to need to contact IDOA, the Illinois Department of Agriculture." And so, if they don't have the answer, they potentially, if you can just kind of keep the door open and extend that olive branch, they can get back to you. So, just some pointers, folks, if that helps you pass along your recommendations.
They should, you know what they should do? They should disclose every recall.
Oh yeah, um, yeah. I'd have to look back at some of the reporting I've done on statements they've made on the secret shopper program or secret shopper concept. Because they've given mixed, from my perspective, mixed statements on the matter. Sometimes they'll say, if we're hearing about problems, we'll investigate. Sometimes they'll say, we're just kind of an audit. And then sometimes I've just heard different ways in which they would actually employ that state cannabis testing lab. So yeah, folks, if you have recommendations on stuff like that, consumer transparency, I'm displaying a comment right now. I don't know, and Dave, I bet you know more than me about this. I'm pretty sure labeling is not under. It's like the labels are created in IDOA. Am I like under the
Yeah,
supervision of
ag
IDOA?
is, I think you're right. I think, well, from cultivation to dispensary, yeah, I think it's an ag thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree with the idea though here. It would be nice to have some transparency about any remediation or kill step, any added botanicals,
yeah.
this should be transparent.
Well, and that's, I mean, you know, like I said, even just start at the tip and like, what are you recalling and why? Because there has been plenty of things that have been pulled off the shelves before that don't get disclosed to the public, and it's left to individual dispensaries to kind of spread the word if they decide to. But why would you want to tell somebody your product's bad?
Yeah. And sometimes I don't know if you've ever heard of this because that is absolutely right. I was recently informed of another angle in which this thing can go down, which is that like a silent recall, if you will. Let's say you work for a cultivator and you hear that a few batches you put out are bad. What do? You send out your employees to silently recall that. In other words, you buy it
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah,
and so you're losing money to an extent, but you're not basically allowing. You're not doing a real recall, I guess, is what I'm saying. Um,
yeah.
but these are just little murmurs I've heard. But anyways, folks, definitely, take notes on this feedback and submit it. Once again, I'll put that link in the show notes. Right now, what I'm going to paste in for people that are tuning in live and maybe just want to check it out, I pasted the Illinois News Joint article, which will also be featured in the show notes. It has the link so that you can go and give that feedback. And it also has links to the rules that I mentioned earlier. So definitely take your time. You've got till January 7th. I do recommend trying to get it in before then. And let me know if I can help, try to give you guys some pointers, but I come up with what you think. And if I can help in any way or you're looking for any, feedback, you know, always, always open to chat. So Dave, I appreciate you coming on for this
Thanks for having me,
story.
bud.
I think it's going to be really, really cool to see how this shapes up, and frankly, if other agencies do this, I'd like to see the CROO do this. I'd like to see IDOA do this. I'd like to see the 11 other agencies that are involved that if you pop quiz me right now.
IDPH,
Yeah.
ISP, they
Yeah.
all
Yeah. I
can.
mean, IDPH, yeah, that'd be great to give them feedback on like how the medical cannabis program is going for patients. Like I think the story we discussed earlier, I'm sure they're aware now because it's a big story right now. But if they weren't, that the family and everybody, I think, should be able to open feedback. So I really hope that this feedback thing goes well. And like I say, this isn't the last time we get the opportunity to provide feedback.
It would be the best if something came of it. If they actually showed that they
Yes.
could do something instead of just, like, getting everybody's hopes up, and, like,
Right.
maybe they can't change the things like we said, maybe they don't have the power, but maybe they find something through the list and they go, "Holy crap, we can actually make that happen ourselves," and then do something about it.
Yeah, or even just, like, produce some sort of report. I don't know what the survey actually looks like, but, like, an anonymized report, that just sort of details and it's just like, "Hey, this is the feedback we got. We're not necessarily making any policy recommendations, but this is how the people feel," and anyways, yeah, like you say, I think that is a really good note to end this on because as much as I am excited that they're taking feedback, it's like, all right, let's see if they actually do anything with that feedback.
Fingers
I'm
crossed,
I'm
man.
hopeful. I'm
No,
hopeful.
honestly, the fact that they even put the thing out there is, like, hopeful enough, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, we're gonna move on to our next story, but folks, once again, smash that like button if you haven't already. You can call in at colememo.com/live. We are live, so if you drop your comments, if you've been noticing, I've been displaying people's comments on screen. I completely agree with Genetic Memory Farms here. And I just appreciate everybody tuning in live. Feel free to call in. We're gonna close out the show with just a couple more. We'll have one more story, and then I'm going to do some creator shout outs. And Dave, man, if you've got any creators and you want to hang on and give them shout outs, totally open to that. But if you have to head, no worries. Um,
Oh, you're fine. Throw me in the background. Yeah, there's one or two that I think are worth it.
Sweet. Sweet. Well, folks, we'll be right back with our next story here on the Cole Memo. We're going to be talking about closures in the Illinois cannabis market. Check out our content at colememo.com.